Helldivers, welcome back, and today we're talking all about Melee. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that I am a Melee diver, that is right. I know that some people like to hate on us, but I'll love to go down onto the battlefield, give me the hatchet, the saber, even the breaching hammer. I'm gonna have a blast, and I do find them to be, pretty viable on the battlefield. Obviously, you have to change up your playstyle a little bit from time to time, but they can still be very efficient. But I think that has now been a little bit of time that we have had with them where we can start to consider maybe they need a little bit of a rework to make them just a little bit more viable to the wider audience out there. Well, there are many of you out there that would argue with me and say, hey Ox, I don't think that Melee was ever intended to be a primary feature in Helldivers 2, that if you are taking it, it's to the detriment of your own build and to the detriment of your team, especially on those higher difficulties. But I'd say that's kind of the wrong mindset to have, because I have found personally, and with the people that I play with, that you could use Melee on any difficulty just fine depending on if you're going to be adapting your playstyle. But I would also argue and say that Arrowhead is always kind of, intended on making Melee a little bit more viable for us and wanting us to use it more, because they've now given us, if you think about it, 12 options to choose from. So we have our 6 Melee weapons to choose from as a sidearm. Then we have our 3 weapons as primaries that have bayonets on them. And then we also have the 3 stratagems that can call in that are melee focus, which is going to be the exfoliation tool, the breaching hammer, and of course, the one true flag. So 12 options is pretty good. So after that, and after, 2 years of playing with Melee, I'd say that they did want us to be able to use these and be able to use them well, although the balance is not always there for these weapons, and at times it's been a little bit strange, especially I remember when they debuffed all the Melee and then the community was in an uproar to try to get it back because, well, what was the point of using it in the past if they didn't really work? But now I'd say in today's state of the game, they work just fine in terms of, damage, and they are a lot of fun. But I will say, and I will agree with you, and say that yes, they do need a little bit of a rework, and that's what I want to talk with you more about today. So if you're anything like myself, if you see a horde of enemies coming your way, especially the voteless, you just have the urge to whip out that melee weapon, charge into the breach, and just start taking off heads and arms, and it's a lot of fun. You are just swinging through the masses, and it is a bit of a challenge to stay alive at times, but it's also very rewarding in terms of overall fun that you're going to have from this playstyle. And it's great, but the animations that you have are pretty restrictive today. When we're using our things like the hatchet or the saber or the machete, I think we only have 3 swing animations, and it's even worse when you're using, let's say, the stun lance where you're just poking the enemy constantly. But what if we had more animations to make each of the weapons a little bit more viable? Now, I know they all have their different functions and where they perform and excel better in different fronts. Like, let's say if we are using the stun lance, it's great with keeping enemies at bay, locking down a group of them and making sure that they can't advance. Or if you have to quickly swing through a crowd to kind of, kneecap them or delimb them, the saber is going to be really fun. Or if you have to break through some armor, using something like the machete is a great option, even though it's a bit more slow. But just imagine if each of these had a little bit more, animations for your swing styles that, hey, maybe even though I'm using the spear, I'm not just poking, maybe I can swing wide to get a group of them pushed back. Or with the sword, maybe I could stab instead of just constantly swinging away and having very kind of rigid and less fluid style of swinging for animations. I just think that if we had a little bit more out there, it would make each of the weapons a little bit more viable and more fun to use, and would probably be a bit more appealing for the wider masses. But I've also appreciated the melee-focused support weapons that we get, like the exfoliation tool and the breaching hammer, because these things I find to be incredibly fun to use. Now, especially the breaching hammer, I could pretty much kill anything in front of me, and it's great. I don't think this needs any work. Keep it exactly as it is. I don't think that we should change it at all. For the exfoliation tool, though, there are people out there that do complain about this one a bit. Personally, I use this and I can kill pretty much anything in my way, from cutting through fabricators to just working down a big enemy and killing even Vox engines like I was doing on Cyberstan with it. You could have a ton of fun with this, although it will take you a long time. But when you are being zerged and there are masses, sometimes people are having an issue where the hit detection is not working correctly for the exfoliation tool, and it's not actually cutting through the enemy like it should be, whereas normally you just rev it up and cut through a lot of limbs. But that's typically on the client side. More of the times when you are the host, you're not having these issues. But on the client side, I know even to this day that issue persists. So it makes people, less likely to be bringing the exfoliation tool. So I'd say that if we had to go look at these weapons that are in the support category, that would be the one to maybe kind of rework a little bit. Maybe, again, it's more animations, or maybe just working on the hit registry to make it better. But that needs a little bit of a rework as well. What about the one true flag, though? Now, I have liked the current change to it where the enemies are attracted to the flag. You take it out and they will just chase you down. And when you couple it with something like a Hell Bomb, it can be a very fun playstyle to use. But myself and many of the other players out there would also like, let's say, an inspiration or a buff being added to it. So maybe you have a little bit more stamina when you are near the one true flag or something else. But also, as I was saying previously with like the stun lance, because it's a spear and it only just pokes, it kind of limits you and locks you down. How much more fun would it be, guys, if we can also swing wide to keep the enemies at bay as well as having the poke? It would make using the flag a little bit more fun to be that standard bearer and, keep you alive a little bit longer as well. Alright, now for a semi-hot take on Melee. I don't think that they should actually be listed as sidearms. I think that they should have their own category and their own class, so when you're equipping your loadout, you have your primary, your secondary, your throwable, and then you have your equipable melee. Because there's just so many more times where I want a little bit more added onto my playstyle, and I would love to have a pistol as well as having a sword, or be able to dig these ditches like crazy now, and still use maybe the pistol and the other guns so that I can have this awesome trench warfare when I'm using like the shovel tool, and not restrict my playstyle, lock me down a little bit more. So I think that this type of change would open up playstyles and get people to use melee a lot more, because one, it would be kind of like a standard option that you always bring. So people would become more familiar with it, they'd end up using it more, and they would come to appreciate melee weapons a lot more as well. And again, this would add a lot more build variety, and I think that it could be a great quality of life change, but let me know what your thoughts of that are. So, what's the long and short of it? Well, essentially it breaks down to, if they made 0 changes on the melee system and kept it as is, there are plenty of people like myself that would continue to use the melee weapons, but they will still always remain niche. And if they want to open it up more to more people and, give us more melee weapons in the future because they could sell more things to us that people are going to buy, they should rework the system a little bit more with like kind of what I'm talking about. But friends, again, that's just my thoughts. I'm sure you all have your own takes. Probably you're going to say that I'm insane for even talking about this. But hey, I think that it could be great for the game. But once again, everyone, thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care.